You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. My name is Dan Rolinson. I'm joined by Pat from PGR Analytics today. Pat, how are you, mate? You all right?
Good, thank you. Good to be here again.
Yeah, not too bad. It's quite warm here today, so we'll try and get through this as quick as possible before I overheat in this jumper. We're here to talk about Chelsea. Obviously, on the weekend, the international break is thankfully over at last. Just quickly before we get into Premier League action, thoughts on the international break? Do you care? Did you even watch England?
I was at a meal for one of them, but then I watched the first game, and it was okay. It was the same thing with England. You're never really impressed by the performance, are you? It's just they go through the motions. The Andorra game, we didn't play that great, but obviously the scoreline says a different story. And then, it qualifies, isn't it? It's not going to be that exciting.
Chelsea on the weekend, kind of into the out of the frying pan into the fire this month, isn't it? Chelsea twice in the league and the cup, Everton and Man United. I think I shared the last time I spoke to him that this is kind of like the test for Villa to see where they are. Do you agree with that? Because I don't know whether I do, because if we lose these games against the big sides, it's not the end of the world because we're not expected to win. So I don't know whether I'm judging Villa too harshly if we lose them. But if we do perform well in these games, that probably does set the bar that Villa are at this level rather than struggling down the bottom after the opening month.
I think it's going to be a clear indication of where we're at, to be honest, because obviously you've got the likes of Watkins, Bailey and everyone coming back to full fitness. And the first few games, it was a new squad. And you saw the development as those games went along, like the shots in Brentford. I feel like it was Newcastle and Brentford was better than Watford, obviously. But yeah, I don't think anyone should be too disheartened if we lose 3-0 tomorrow. But I've got this weird sneaking suspicion that we're going to get something tomorrow. So that's my blind optimism as usual.
Is any of that based on the fact that we beat them at the back end of last season? Or is that two totally different things that they've got an eye on the Champions League, obviously a different Villa and a different Chelsea? Or is it just blind faith?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I think it was the back end of the season. I think a lot of people are on holiday and had their eyes on the Champions League final and whatnot. But I also just think this is going to be the first game where it might suit whatever style of play we want to go for, really. Like the first three games, we've had to kind of come onto teams and try and break them down. But this is going to be a game where Chelsea are going to dominate the majority of possession, and we might, with the pace of Watkins and Bailey and whoever else, we might be able to damage them on the counter-attack. We haven't really been able to see if this team can counter or anything, so could suit us, to be honest.
You say we've not really seen this team counter, but I feel like we've not really seen this team.
Yeah, we haven't seen the team.
It's 3 games. The Watford game, you pretty much write off by half time because we were so poor. Newcastle, we don't really have to get out of second gear by the time the second goal goes in as well. And then Brentford was probably the most difficult test in terms of the game itself, I'd say. But we've not seen what anyone would consider our best 11 yet. And to be honest, we'll not see them for another 3 or 4 weeks, and there's another international break, and we'll be back to square one with some of the players going off to international duty again as well. So I don't really know what Villa are yet this season. I don't know what we're going to be. I don't know what our style of play wants to be. I don't know who is our best 11, because you look at Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins and think, well, they both have to play. But if they both play, I don't know what the rest of the system is. So you're the stats man. You've got the analysis. What kind of 11 would you play? How should Villa line up to get the best out of this squad?
I've honestly been racking my brain looking. I'm so glad I don't have to make the decision and Dean Smith does, because it is ridiculous. But in my head, I'm thinking now it's come out that if Lukaku can start or whatever it is, and they play this three with 5 at the back, and then you got 2 behind Lukaku, and then Lukaku up top as a false 9 type, dropping deep and people running off him. But I think if you want to keep Lukaku out of the game, this might be the game that you go 3 at the back with Twanzebe, Konza and Mings. Just have all these physical centre halves with pace that can compete with him, if you want to say that. But then again, it's what midfield you play with that. Do you play Sanson? Do you play Ramsey? Do you play Camber or Louise? Do we have anything going forward from that? And then Ings and Watkins up top if they work together. So that's what I was edging towards, but obviously I might get a bit of stick for that, but I'm not sure. We haven't implemented that, and we haven't tried it in pre-season, I don't think. And it's just, I don't know, it's very unknown, but I feel like you have to match up against Chelsea because they're going to be the ones dominating this game. it's not like we can come into Stamford Bridge and play them off the park. At least not so far, anyway. The way we've been playing.
Yeah, so it's a bold shout. I don't expect us to go through at the back. I don't think we'll ever change that drastically for the opposition. I think we'll tweak things, but not change from a 4 to a 3. I saw a tweet yesterday. I can't remember which account it was from, but they're saying, "I'm looking forward to seeing what Dean Smith says in his press conference tomorrow." And all the replies were like, "Why? What's the point? We rarely learn anything anyway." And obviously, there's a bit of news that Watkins should be fit, which it's not a great word to see "should" in there. I like to hear him just say, "Yeah, he's back." Bailey is fit and available, so you'd imagine he'll start. We'll come on to our starting 11 in a sec. But there's still this uncertainty. You've got McGinn and Jacob Ramsey back from their COVID procedure or whatever the wording was. And it's like, are they fit, ready to start then? There was no mention of Ezri Konsa, but there was a picture of him in training on Thursday, I think that was. So it's like, well, he's training, but is he fit to come straight back in play? So if he's not, we're not going to be seeing a 3 at the back that you've suggested. So I don't know. The press conference are fine, and Villa don't have to come here and say, "Yeah, this is who's fit and available," and give everything away. But as a fan, and when we were trying to do stuff like this, it's like I've got to speak to our Chelsea journalist colleague after this, and he'll say, "What kind of lineup will Villa play?" And I'll be like, "I don't know really." The two that we know for sure won't be playing are Martinez and Buendia. I don't know whether I spoke to you about this. I spoke to James when we last did a podcast. Before the international break, we were like, "Yeah, go with our blessing, like the compromise with the club." Fair play to you. And now after everything kicks off with Brazil and Argentina, you think, why can't they just stay? And now you've got all these Brazilian players being banned from playing in the Premier League this weekend. It's just a right mess, isn't it? I don't know what your thoughts were on that. And now, obviously, without our first choice goalkeeper and our creative outlet as well.
I think I just read that they're gonna. I think Premier League clubs have come out and said that they're just going to defy whatever ban was going to be put in place for South American players this weekend. I'm not sure if that applies to our players if they were here, or just like Rafinha and the Brazilian players and everything. But it's just a mess, isn't it? No one actually knows what's going on. It feels like if you went to international duty, you got a ban, and if you didn't go to international duty, you got a ban. So I don't know how you win this situation, to be honest. So I've got no idea.
There's another break coming up in a month as well, isn't there? So we're going to be in this exact situation again. If you go, you have to come back and isolate, which is what Buendia and Martinez are training in Croatia at the moment, whatever that means, and they're back for the Everton game to get around the protocols for isolation. So to move away from Villa to a lesser extent, how do we beat Chelsea?
I don't know if you can stop Lukaku, to be honest, but I feel like you can just not make errors that make his life easy. So, I remember watching him against Arsenal, I just felt like the centre half was getting really tight to him. And, it's just easy for him to shrug you off then, and he can just, play the ball off to Mount or whoever's running off him. And then, obviously, the one for his goal, he just bulldozed the centre half through the box and was just latched onto the end of a cross. So, I feel like if you track him, just constantly have eyes on him, watch him constantly, and don't get too tight to him. Which I can't remember who. Mings was guilty of getting too tight to players on a few occasions last year, and then they just whip it in. But they need to be switched on. But I do think having the physical presence of Mings might help that situation.
I was going to say who are the other threats for Chelsea, but you look across their whole squad, really. I think, well, whoever they play, you stop Lukaku, but you got to deal with Havertz or whoever else. So this is without doubt our most difficult game of the season so far. But I'm not the kind of fan that goes, Chelsea, that's going to be hard. Just write that game off, no points. Because if football worked like that, we wouldn't play the game, would we?
No, we're a bit of a bogey side for Chelsea, but growing up, I thought the 4-4s and the 2-0 wins with the 2 centre-halves scoring against them. But it'd be boring if every game was set in stone like that. So, like I said previously, I've got blind optimism thinking that we're going to go away from home at Stamford Bridge on TV at the evening game, which we always perform so well on TV.
Talk to me about set pieces. You told me when we were organising this little preview, I've got some stats on set pieces for Chelsea, so fire them at me. How can we tackle their set pieces? Because we're set piece specialists, basically.
Yeah, we are. It's our only way of scoring. It's our only hope. They've conceded 14 shots from set pieces, which is the 8th most in the league. Obviously, 8th most isn't that bad, but for a team that's challenging for the league, you could probably class it as a weakness. And then from this, they've had accumulated 1.4 xG from it. So the opponents have added 1.4 xG from these shots, which is the 5th most in the league. So it kind of tells me that they are a bit susceptible to the set pieces. And then obviously you tie that in with Austin McPhee coming into things and the 2 goals against Newcastle. And I just think we look more threatening every single time we have one now, to be honest. So if there is an area to exploit on this Chelsea team, like, I think that could be the one, especially with Austin McPhee now in the fold.
So how exactly do we do that then? Is that just a case of pushing forward and trying to win as many set pieces as possible in the hope that we score one of them?
I think it will be celebrating getting a throw in like it's a goal. To be honest.
Try and pick a starting 11 for me then. If this was a side we were playing at home and it was a winnable game, you might be going, play all these creative players, play that best 11, but you're only going away to Chelsea. You might not be able to put all those creative players in there anyway.
Yeah.
So, question 1, before you pick your 11, if Watkins is fit, does he come straight back in and start games for you?
I think, especially in this one, he needs to be honest, because Chelsea are just going to dominate possession and just they build up so slow from the back. So, like, we, in terms of going forward and progressing the ball, we're the fastest team in the league. So that's like passing or just dribbling with the ball. It's 2.1 meters per second, and Chelsea are 1 meter per second, which I think is 19th in the league. So they're just going to pass you to death, dominate possession, probably have 65% possession. And Watkins led the league in pressures in the final third last season. And if you want someone that's going to be just relentlessly running at the opposition, forcing these errors while they're just passing it around the back, I just feel like that, as well as the runs he makes, like, and holds the ball up and brings Ings into play, he needs to play in this game, to be honest. Like, I don't think we're going to have much of the ball. And when we do, we need to make use of it. And I think Watkins is key to that.
So he plays in the same side as Ings for you, like you just mentioned. Yeah. How does that work? Is that Watkins as a 9 with Ings behind him as a 10 effectively, pushing off him? Or is that Watkins out wide with Ings as your main number 9?
Well, Ings last season, I think in Southampton, it was like 90% of the time they played a 4-4-2. So Ings is comfortable playing off someone in that kind of way. And like Watkins is a bit similar to Adams in that they're like strong and like fend for themselves against centre halves and quick and get in and around the box. So against a team that's not Chelsea, I'd be saying 4-4-2 and get Bailey and El Ghazi in on the wings, or Traore if he's fit. But then you've got the issue of, I don't think Bailey tracks back too much, and I don't think El Ghazi does. So if you play 4-4-2 against Chelsea, that might cause problems because they'll just tear you to shreds in midfield and like with the pace they've got and trickery. So it's a very tough question to say how you set up this game. I don't think it's so hard to say you want to play all your attacking players, like you said, and set up against Chelsea. It's just so difficult. I don't know how he's going to set up.
I don't think we'll move away from 3 in midfield now. So if the fitness of the players is there after COVID, Louise, McGinn and Ramsey is a 3 for me. And then you've got, I don't know how you set up front, because like you said, I do.
Watkins out wide, or
that's the only way in my head that it works. So if you're playing 3 in midfield, you can't really play a 2 up front unless you're playing a 3 at the back, which I don't see us doing. If we do play a 3 at the back, we're losing the wide men that we've got. You've got El Ghazi that is scoring goals at the moment. Bailey's your big signing to come in, and Buendia on the other side. Obviously, he's not available for tomorrow, but you'd think he starts every game when available as well. So I don't really know how you fit those players in, which is the problem that Dean Smith will have to fix. And after a couple of games, we might be going, oh yeah, Ollie Watkins is a left winger, or Danny Ings is this player that plays a little deeper, and that's how it works. But as it stands, I don't know how you can play a 3 in midfield and Watkins and Ings together and have any kind of balance. Like you said, I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. There'll probably be people watching this, and happily I'll welcome your suggestions in the comments below. How do you set Villa up? How do you get the best out of them? Because Buendia, Bailey, Ings, Watkins probably all pretty much play when fit and available. That's 4 forward players and very attacking forward players as well. And Villa don't do well with the 2 midfield. So how they all fit in, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got no clue either. I was going to say the only other option would be a 4-2-3-1 with like Ings as like a 10 maybe, or Watkins out wide. But then again, it poses the same issues you saw at Watford, which was we just get overrun and McGinn can't really operate in a 2. And then we haven't even thought about Sanson, who's meant to be the number 8. I don't know where he slots in. He might be competing with Ramsey in a 4-3-3. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they'll set up tomorrow.
It's for both of us that we just sit and say, we don't know. The final thing before we go over to Adam, are you worried about Jed Steer in goal? Obviously, Emi
No.
Martinez has been number one now for the entire season. I think I saw a stat saying that it will only be judged his third ever Premier League game. You just said there as I was talking, no. Are you confident in still?
After his performance in the playoff final and the playoff semi-final,
2 years ago though.
I'm fine with it. I have full faith in it. He did go full Pepe Reina in pre-season, which I do remember, but I will skim past that relatively fast. But yeah, I do have confidence in him. I don't think he'll be taking any risks. There'll be no nonsense. He'll just clear the ball when we have it, and it'll be fine. He can make a save when he needs to, and if they get a penalty, he's also a penalty specialist, so it's fine.
Well, that's given me a little bit of confidence. You said you started this by saying you got blind faith in Villa. So what's your score prediction?
2-1 again. Same score as last game of the season.
I'd love to agree with you, but I just can't see it. So I'm going to go with 1-1 and Villa get another draw, and that be a good result against Chelsea. They're probably going to be in the top three. You'd have thought pretty much nailed on. So 1-1 for me, 2-1 for you. We'll see who's right come Saturday tea time. We'll be doing a podcast after the game. Me and Matt Kendrick, I believe, we'll be having a quick 20-minute chat after the game. But before we end this episode, I'd like to cross over to Adam and myself, where I'll be asking him some questions about Chelsea and how they think they can get the best of Villa and pretty much what they're worried about from Villa, because it's easy for us to sit here as Villa fans and go, oh, Chelsea, I'm worried about them. Maybe the Chelsea end are worried about us. So don't smirk. So Adam, thank you very much for joining us. You're part of our Reach network at a sister title over at football.london. You've been covering Chelsea for the best part of the year. How are you finding it? You enjoying it?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's been a good period to cover the club. Champions League win, Super Cup win. It's not been too bad.
It's all downhill from here. Hopefully starting from tomorrow. We'll start with the Chelsea and then how do you assess the job that Tuchel's done since taking over from Lampard?
Yeah, it's been absolutely remarkable what he's managed to achieve in such a short space of time. Obviously, with certain players, he's had a huge impact, the likes of Andreas Christensen, Antonio Rudiger, Jorginho. He's absolutely transformed their form, have made all of them sort of indispensable to Chelsea. So from that respect, he's been fantastic for the club, and he's made Chelsea just a top side again. They're so well coached, so well structured. They have a multitude of different threats. It's impossible to say he's done sort of everything you expected and so much more. He has definitely proven himself to be one of the very best coaches in the world, and Chelsea are sort of fortunate to have got him at this point. Where he's learned from the experiences at Dortmund, where he fell out with people. He's learned from the experiences at PSG of handling people like Neymar and Mbappe and sort of those egos in the dressing room. I think Chelsea have got him at the absolute perfect time, to be honest.
Obviously, we played each other back in the last season, and Villa came out winners that day. But at the end of the season, you got eyes on the Champions League. I imagine we both agree that it will be a very different game tomorrow.
It should be. I mean, that Villa game was probably an important indicator of there was still a little bit of immaturity amongst this Chelsea team. There were games where they would slip up in like that and they wouldn't necessarily produce the level of performance that they had shown against the likes of Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, Man City. There were these games where Chelsea would just suddenly drop off entirely, and this game tomorrow, I think, is going to be very interesting to see if this squad has now matured, if the signing of Romelu Lukaku's helped take them to that other level where those performances just don't happen anymore. Chelsea have started the season well. They won the Super Cup, swatted aside Palace and Arsenal, and against Liverpool last time out. The second half performance was almost the Chelsea of old in terms of how resolute it was defensively to keep out Liverpool with 10 men at Anfield kicking towards the Kop. That was perhaps a sign that this Chelsea are the real deal. But I think tomorrow's game will actually be another indicator as to whether that is the case, because if they can turn up from minute one and produce a performance, then that'll be another sign that this Chelsea team are now ready to challenge for the Premier League title again. Yeah,
I know you've obviously just won the Champions League, so I'm not going to sit here and actually start winning isn't a new thing for Chelsea, but being title contenders is a new thing in comparison to years gone by. How do you think that will affect this season and the extra pressure that comes with competing at the very top of the league? Because before Lukaku, people would maybe just go, it's Man City or nothing really. Now Lukaku comes in and that changes that conversation that Chelsea are serious contenders for the title, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the last time obviously Chelsea won the title was 2017, and they haven't really been close since then. this is still a very new team. There's a lot of young players in it. The Champions League win was huge in terms of building that mentality of getting over the line in big games and winning the biggest trophies, and it's made the rest of the squad very hungry for more. I think Romelu Lukaku signing was really important given his mentality, the fact that he comes from a title win with Inter Milan last season. I think is really important, and he is basically prepared, and he said this at his unveiling, he's prepared to take a lot of the pressure on. He's happy to accept the responsibility that he needs to score goals, that he needs to win games, and the hope is obviously that in turn frees up other players, maybe mentally as well, to just step up their level of performance. The likes of Kai Havertz and Mason Mount, and I was going to say Timo Werner, but he's still pretty much inconsistent with his finishing. So, but yeah, I'd say it's going to be an interesting season just because Chelsea do want to win the Premier League. They do want to try and retain the Champions League, but they're obviously also in the FA Cup, the League Cup, and in December the Club World Cup. So they've got a lot on their plate.
Just on the Villa side, how do you assess the job that Dean Smith's done in the last couple of years? I doubt you've seen much of Villa this season. We've only played 3 games, and to be fair, the chat we've just had before you've come on, don't know what that indicates for Villa this season. I don't think those 3 games prove what Villa are going to be heading forward, because it's a very different side. Obviously, it's a very different side to last season without Jack Grealish. But from the outside looking in, how do you assess what Villa are potentially building here?
Yeah, I find it very interesting. Obviously, the first season back up was primarily about staying up, and Villa managed that just about. And then last season was hugely impressive. I thought Villa signed really well. Really like Ollie Watkins. Think he's an excellent player. And I guess this year is going to be about stepping up again. With a caveat, obviously losing Grealish was huge. I thought Villa sold him at the right point in terms of getting what they wanted and then being able to reinvest. I like a lot of their signings. I think Leon Bailey is potentially, if he can be properly unlocked, a huge player for Villa this season. Emi Buendia is obviously fantastic as well. So yeah, it's hard not to have been impressed by the sort of evolution over the last 2 years. I guess now the next step is almost proving that they can do it without Grealish and taking that next step without him.
If we were doing this preview this time last season, we were saying who's the danger man, who you're most scared of, and it'd be Jack Grealish by default pretty much. It's not him now, and Villa's still gelling this season. But if you had to kind of single out one player that you'd be concerned about tomorrow running at your defence, who is it?
I'd say Ollie Watkins. I think he's excellent. I really like his profile. I think his development is really interesting, the way he stepped up through the divisions. Obviously, with Danny Ings now in situ, he may not be the same in terms of being the main man in that attack. I think Danny Ings is going to take a lot of that responsibility. But yeah, I'd say I really like Ollie Watkins, so he would probably be the one who I would be most fearful of almost.
Back to Chelsea, how do you expect to line up tomorrow? Because there was doubts in the week about Lukaku. He's confirmed that he's fit now to play after a scan, I think. Kante is out as well. So just run me through the expected lineup that you think Chelsea will put out tomorrow for us.
Thomas Tuchel looked bemused that they were even concerned about Romelu Lukaku, to be honest, when he was asked that question in the press conference today. But in terms of Chelsea, I think we'll see Edu Mendy in goal. I do think we'll see the back 3 of Cesar Azpilicueta, Andreas Christensen, and Antonio Rudiger. There is still rumblings on that Thiago Silva could play, and that's a bigger issue. Reece James is suspended after being sent off against Liverpool. So I expect Callum Hudson-Odoi plays at right wing back. The midfield 2 without Kante will almost certainly be Kovacic and Jorginho, with Saul coming off the bench. Left wing back is interesting. I think it might be Marcus Alonso, but Ben Chilwell is pushing hard because he hasn't actually played yet this season. And the front 3 will be Romelu Lukaku, Mason Mount, and another, which I'll probably say Kai Havertz, just because there were some real good signs against Liverpool that 3 were really starting to gel.
I spoke to Pat before you came on, and I said, how do we beat Chelsea? Is it a case of stopping Lukaku? And he was kind of saying, well, it's not just about him. If we do manage to stop Lukaku, somehow, I don't know how we do that just yet. Just like that. Who's like the secondary danger man? Because he's the easy answer, isn't he? Is saying, well, Lukaku's the main man there to stop, but it's not as simple as that when you're building a side that want to win the Premier League.
No, I think the secondary danger for Chelsea has to be Kai Havertz. Last season wasn't that easy for him. His first in English football. Moving over in the pandemic, he caught COVID quite badly. He then had an injury. But I think the sort of last couple of months of last season, you started to see what he could really become. the Champions League final goal he scored was hugely important for him. He's spoken about that being really important for him. I think mentally it's almost given him a level of acceptance now at Chelsea. He's got this sort of stock in the bank. He's always going to be associated with this huge moment for Chelsea. I think that's actually going to help free him up a little bit this season in terms of his performances. And you saw kind of the varied threat he has. His header against Liverpool was an unbelievable header. But he's such an intelligent mover out of possession. He finds space. I think he's going to have a big season. So, I would say definitely Havertz if it's not Lukaku. But that's not to diminish the threat of someone like a Mason Mount as well.
I don't assume Dean Smith is watching this podcast in the hotel this evening. But if he is, what's Chelsea's weakness? Because I was saying at the back end of our Villa segment about 10 minutes ago, maybe Chelsea are concerned about us. Maybe Chelsea are looking at some of our players and thinking, oh yeah, I'm concerned about him. I was laughed out of the room, of the virtual room when I said that. Is there anyone that concerns you from the Villa end? And if there is, how do we break Chelsea down? How do we beat you, essentially?
I think there's always a slight concern with the midfield too of Jorginho and Mateo Kovacic, that if you can get runners at them with the ball, they can be exposed. Look, Jorginho has a lot of things. He's an excellent progressor of play. He's really intelligent with his positional play, and there's a load of positives to Jorginho, but he's not the most mobile and he's not the quickest across the ground. If you can get players running at him, they can beat him. Mateo Kovacic, again, excellent footballer, technically fantastic, great dribbler, but his defensive awareness of what's behind him isn't always the best. So when you've not got N'Golo Kante in that midfield, there is a bit less protection. So if you can get people running at the Chelsea midfield, and if you can get maybe someone behind Mateo Kovacic, then there are sort of spaces that you can't exploit. But the hardest thing here is obviously you've got to get the ball off Chelsea, and under Tuchel they're very possession orientated and will try and dominate, especially at Stamford Bridge.
Interesting. Last question, score prediction.
I'm always really bad at these whenever I do them. So I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea. I think Chelsea will probably get an early goal, Villa fight back, but then Chelsea managed to get the job done.
Well, hopefully you're wrong. Adam, thank you very much for coming on the Claret and Blue podcast. I really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, and may the best team win tomorrow. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.